All right. Here we are. Uh, no, here we are. Just a moment. Let's just go back. All right, guys. Welcome to Economics 101 by Professor T. My name is Tanmay Chopra, also known as Professor T, as I just said. I'm going to keep the introduction very short and sweet. Not going to take 5 minutes, unlike other YouTubers. Not going to name them. So, this is a new economics channel that will be going through the OCR specification for GCSEs, of course. And so I'm in year 11. And the reason why I started this YouTube channel, this is the first video. So the reason why I started this YouTube channel is I had my mocks that ended yesterday. And when I was preparing for them, I realized that I had various resources to study for other subjects such as maths, English, computer science. However, economics was one of the only ones which lacked resources. And as a result, it took me quite some extra time to study for it. And so this is why I started this YouTube channel where I'll be posting the videos for everything in the specification, which would help you to get a better grade in economics and most importantly will save you time. So my first question to you is, what is economics? What do you think economics is? Give it a few seconds, think about it. So let me just get to it. So economics is the study of the allocation of scarce resources. That's the classic definition. It also deals with the production, consumption and distribution of goods and services. However, the classic definition is, if asked in the exam, is what you would write, which is this one. And basically, you just need to understand that resources provide everything. Like everything you see around yourself is made up of resources, or out of raw materials, isn't it? For example, you could take anything. So, for example, the food that you eat, it comes from natural resources, doesn't it? Everything. The lamp that is here, it's also made up of resources, isn't it? Everything is made up of resources. Even time is a resource, a very important one. Alright, so the first thing in the specification, if I just move here, is we need to understand the role of the main economic groups, consumers, producers and government, including their independence. So what are the three economic groups? Let me just get back to it. So three main economic groups: consumers, producers and government. Consumers, they demand goods and services. The demand is the key word, because if there is no one demanding for goods and services, who would they go to? Right? And then how would the economy work then? However, there is one key concept that you need to understand, that consumers do not necessarily need to pay for goods and services. Let me give you an example. Imagine you go to a doctor just for medical consultation. You receive the consultation and you come back. You don't necessarily pay for the consultation, right? Now, what has happened is that you had a demand for a service, which is the consultation. You received it. The producer, basically the doctor, supplied it. However, you didn't pay for it, right? So, that proves that you don't necessarily need to pay for goods and services. Now, coming to producers, they supply goods and services because consumers have demands and they need to be supplied. And that's what producers basically do. In UK, most producers are private businesses, but some organizations are provided by the government, such as schools. It is very self-explanatory. I don't think there's a hard concept here. Hard concepts are what you will be facing in inflation and balance of payments. Yeah, this is a relatively simpler topic. And all right, let's continue. So government is the institution that decides who should benefit and how to distribute goods and services. Distribute is the key word here. So they decide who should the resources or the goods and services should go to. Of course, the public ones. So there are two sectors in the economy, the public sector and the private sector. Public sector is owned by the government, private sector is owned by the businesses. So government decides who should benefit from the resources, and so they might spend money on like welfare, defense, and they decide who should receive how much of it, and etc. etc. The government has various purposes. You can just study about them endlessly. Now, what is production? Now, like economics will be dealing with a lot of production. Like this is a word that comes up a lot in economics. Now you need to understand what production actually is. I don't think this is in the economics any revision guide or any book. However, you should still know the definition and understand it so that you get the concepts right. So production is basically nothing but combining resources which would act as your input to produce output for consumption. Combining resources to produce output. Very easy to understand. And now who is going to consume? The consumers. As we just saw in the previous slide. So this is one thing that you need to know. Now, factors of production. Essentially, what makes production actually take place? Land, labor, capital, and enterprise. We'll go through them one by one in detail. Don't worry about it. I'm here. Professor T is here. So, 4 factors. Land, labor, capital, enterprise. Now, land includes all the natural resources and not just the physical land. You need to get this concept right. This even includes water and oil. All the natural resources, not just land. And now, the reward that you get for land is rent. Let me explain. Suppose you have a land, like an actual physical land. You give it to someone else for temporary use. What would you get in return? Rent. He would have to pay for it, right? This is what land is. That's all you need to know about land. Just make sure that you don't just see it as the physical land. It includes natural resources as well. Labor. Now, you have all the resources. To make something out of these resources, you need labor, right? So, labor is the human input in the production. Production is what? Basically combining of the inputs to produce outputs. And now who is going to combine that input? Who's going to combine that input? It will be the labor. And when laborers are working, in the reward they are given wages. Very easy to understand, isn't it? Just get these key concepts right. So land includes all the natural resources that would be used in production, and labor is the human input in the production. Example, the supply of workers available. You need labor to convert resources or input into output. Understand? Very simple. And the reward that you get for it is wages, for labor basically. Now, we come to this more difficult one, which is capital. Now, capital has various definitions. If you don't believe me, you can check the net. You can check the revision guides, booklets, wherever you want. However, what I think is the best definition to explain capital is the investment in man-made equipment. Man-made equipment, not the natural resources, because that would count as land. Investment in man-made equipment that is developed to aid the production of other goods. Alright. I don't think you understand in one go. I'll give you an example. Don't worry about it. Now, alright. Capital. Let me give you an example. For example, my favorite example is buildings, which is the trickiest example of capital, like one of the trickiest examples, and I'll explain you just a moment. So you have a building, right? And so basically capital goods can be used in production of other goods, right? But you may ask me, how can a building be used in production of other goods? So here, building cannot be used in production of other goods. However, it could be used in production of other services. And I think I should edit this definition. It should be to aid the production of other goods and services. So now imagine you have a building. Now building can be used for various purposes, not just to live in. However, you could use it for research purposes, right? So when you're using it for that purposes, what you're getting a reward is interest, right? Let me explain. So let's say you invested like £300,000 to set up a building. Now, when someone is someone is using that building. Let's say you lend the building to someone else, and when they pay you money for it, what basically you have got is interest on your investment, right? Don't think of it as profit or loss, because the interest will not be like one-time interest. You can lend the building several times and for like a lot of period of time, can't you? What you need to understand is the difference between capital goods and consumer goods. So consumer goods are used to satisfy needs and wants rather to produce another good. This is where they differ from capital goods. So for example, consumer goods, for example, food items such as anything, for example, just name anything, for example, apple, right? So apple is a fruit, it's a consumer good. You bought an apple, it's a consumer good, you just ate it, right? Now apple cannot be used in production of other goods. Hence, it's not a capital, it's a consumer good. Now, in the case of building can be used, as I just explained, it can be used for various other purposes. You can give it to someone to live in, or you can use it for research purposes, right? So it's aiding the production of other goods and services, right? So this is where, and the reward you get is interest. So this is the difference that you need to understand between consumer goods and capital. Now I think the last thing is what you need to know is the enterprise, the last factor of production. Before we move to enterprise, there is one more thing I need to know. So capital will often in definitions include money. However, let me ask you this question. Would you consider capital as a factor of production? Think about it. Well, if you said yes, then you are wrong. Money is not a factor of production, because you cannot produce a good from money, right? You cannot produce a water bottle from money. You cannot produce like a building from money. You cannot produce a car from money. However, money facilitates the exchange of goods and services. So hence, it's counted in capital, but it aids the production of other goods and services. However, it's not directly used to produce them. So it's not a factor of production. Now, the last thing that we need to understand is enterprise. The person who comes up with the initial business idea. Well, someone needs to have the business idea so that resources can be combined. For example, if someone has a business idea, he'll combine land with labor and with capital to produce goods and services. Now, let me just give you my example. So this laptop that I'm using, even laptop took some resources to be made up, some natural resources to be made up. Now, there had to be specialists, skilled workers who combined those resources. Now, I invested in this laptop. Let's say I invested in this laptop just to produce this YouTube video, right? And let's say I gained some revenue from it. I gained some revenue from the YouTube videos. Then my reward would be interest. And what I just did was the enterprise. This is how all the factors of production can be combined. Well, this is what I just showed you. And that brings us to the end. As you can see, I covered everything in the 1.1, which is the main economic groups and factors of production. So explain the role of main economic groups. We learned consumers, producers, government, and explain the factors of production, land, labor, capital, and enterprise, and how might they be combined. I try to explain you every single concept that you would need to know in order to attempt the future questions and to understand the future concepts as well. So that brings us to the end. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.